Hello and welcome to my podcast, Up Your Total Glow, your podcast for your body, mind and soul, to support, guide and empower you to uncover your most glowing, healthiest and feel-good version of you. I am super excited that you are here with me today because if you ask me, there's nothing that looks and feels better. In today's episode, I'm speaking with the absolutely wonderful Peter Lab. Peter is a Post Natal Exercise Expert and he is one of the UK's leading post-partum exercise specialists, and he has been so for over 10 years, and he has been featured in magazines and other national media. And what I love most about Peter is that he is truly, genuinely passionate about helping women to recover from postpartum issues, and he does so without ripping women off. And in this very beautiful special interview, Peter shares with us everything around postpartum care and exercise, why it's so important, how it is done properly, why it's not right that it is as expensive as it is, why he is offering a different and very affordable approach. Of course, we also speak about what is diastasis recti, and if you would like to learn more about postpartum care, health and recovery, then this interview is a must listen for you. Please enjoy. Hello and welcome, Peter. I am so excited to have you here today. How are you?
I'm very well, thanks very much, Ruth. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, I can't wait to dive into this conversation with you. And first off, can you please introduce yourself? The big question, who are you? And what do you do?
Yeah, sure. So my name is Peter Lab. I'm a postpartum personal trainer or postpartum expert, whatever you want to call it. It's all good. I've been doing this for well over a decade now. I also run healthypostnatalbody.com, which is an online sort of version of it, and I host a Healthy Postnatal Body podcast.
Exciting and absolutely amazing. I love what you do, but when I heard first about you, I was really amazed. I thought, this is intriguing. He's a man and he specializes in postpartum.
Yeah.
So please explain. I mean, why not? But I just think it's very intriguing.
It's a good question. It's one I get asked a lot. So it was about 15 years ago when I was a personal trainer, when I started becoming a personal trainer, a lot of, because I used to have a proper job before this. I used to have a real job and then became a personal trainer. A lot of my clients were between the ages of 25 and 35. And one of my American friends had the same client group, but he kept complaining about how he's constantly losing clients because his clients were pregnant, because it's just about that age, and then they were postpartum, and he didn't know how to train them. So even though his clients wanted to stay with him, he didn't have the qualifications to deal with it. And to be fair, 15 years ago, postpartum qualifications weren't what they are now. They weren't as readily available. So I said, well, that's a silly reason to lose your clients, right? If your clients want to stay, so I could see this coming for myself. So I decided to retrain, do a ton of postpartum qualifications, and kept my clients. And as I wrote more and more, because I've always been a big writer about fitness, as I wrote more and more about postpartum life and postpartum recovery and all that sort of thing, the issues that you can have postpartum, I realized that I was getting more and more emails from people, from women, saying that, okay, I've never read about this before, I've never come across this before, my belly looks like this, I have back issues, and there's nobody in my area that can help me. Can you tell me what to do? Because like I said, 10, 15 years ago, it wasn't diastasis recti, separation of the core muscles, back pain and all that sort of stuff were kind of seen as normal, as part of, this is just the way it is. So that's how I fell into it. Before I knew it, I was the only one in Scotland really doing it. And then now more and more people are doing it, of course, but I was kind of little bit ahead of the curve. So for the past 10 or so years, I've been doing nothing else.
I love it. And I was one of these women, so I can totally relate. I remember very well, I had two girls, short after the other, like 2 years in between. And I remember after my first daughter, I went to a post natal fitness thing with the baby, and
Yeah.
the lady was very lovely and an older kind, a little bit tough, and she was like, oh, your stomach muscles are still very weak, you have to start training your stomach muscles. And I'm like, oh, I didn't even think about training my stomach muscles. Okay, so what did I do? I started crunches. I didn't know.
Of course. Yeah.
Great. I think you know what happened then when I had my second baby, and she was like huge, because obviously so shortly after the other, the belly really knew how to extend. So here I was with a beautiful diastasis recti, and I did not know what to do or what this was, and there was no help available at all. Like, it's just normal. Yeah, so I really love what you are about, and obviously our bodies are amazing, and there's always something that we can do, even though what I did was way too late. I would have preferred to do it much earlier, because it would have been so much easier. But even then, I was able to reverse and to really strengthen my core, which I'm super grateful for. Okay, so just needed to mention this because it really hits home what you're saying, and I love what you do, and I know you're really passionate about it. And you're not only passionate about empowering and helping us women, but also to make it affordable. And you already said, like you're answering all these emails, and this is so much work, and you're doing it anyway. So I love that. So tell us a little bit, truly, why are you so passionate about keeping it so affordable? So what's the system behind this?
That's a good question. So when I realized, when I just started this whole postpartum recovery stuff, I was getting a lot of emails, and a lot of emails were kind of mentioning that, okay, there is someone in my area, but I can't afford to train with them because they're like $100 an hour or something like that. Because, it's a small market, you're a captive audience, and a lot of women postpartum are quite scared and low on body confidence, and therefore, for want of a better phrase, they're easily exploitable. It's easy to overcharge people when they're terrified and they're concerned and all that sort of stuff. And I just thought it was really odd that in a country like the UK, because this is obviously where I started, postpartum recovery advice wasn't freely available. It struck me as insane that it's only available to people with a certain amount of disposable income. And I do okay if I have to see a physio, I can afford it, but a lot of people can't. Let's be honest, a lot of people this day and age especially are living paycheck to paycheck. They're not going to throw $100 a month out just to get a bit of help with what was seen at the time as an aesthetic issue. But just, you still look 9 months pregnant, but that's just how you look postpartum. And you have a baby to take care of, you have a family to feed and all that sort of stuff. So the last person a mother tends to spend money on is herself. Right? That is just the way it is. You're at the bottom of the tree, so to speak. And it struck me as really odd. So I started doing consultations around Edinburgh first, which is the city where I live up in Scotland. Just free consultation. Just say, listen, guys, if you need a half hour or 45 minutes of my time, I'll make 5 hours a week available for free. Just send me an email. I'll come over. We'll talk things through, and I'll give you a little program. Completely free, no sales, nothing at the end of it. Most of these women never signed up for PT because that wasn't what the goal was. And I found that the demand for that was so overwhelming that I just thought, this isn't right. Do you know what I mean? Some things in life are just not right, and you kind of have to do something about that. At the time in the UK, there was only one other online postpartum program, or at the time it was still a book, to be honest. This is how long ago we're talking. You got a book and a DVD set. And I thought, I didn't know how to deal with that. And obviously the internet came up. So 4 or 5 years ago, 4 or 5 years ago, now pre-COVID, so everything blends into one a little bit. I started building the Healthy Postnatal Body website. And I said, okay, we need to make this stuff. First of all, every woman should have 3 months. The standard fitness program is about 3 months. That first 3 months postpartum recovery should be free for everybody, because that is the only right thing to do. So I said to everybody, okay, we're going to make 3 months completely free. 3 months free access. That means all the workouts, all the advice, send me emails. You don't need to pay. You sign up on day one. You cancel on day one. That's okay. You still get 3 months completely free, because that is the right thing to do. After that, because a lot of postpartum issues take longer to resolve than 3 months, no matter what anybody tells you, right? After that, we have to make it affordable. So we have to make sure that everybody can afford to pay for it. So in the UK, I set it at £8 a month. In America, that translates as $10. And I'm not quite sure what the Australian conversion rate is to American dollars, but it's probably about $12 or something like that, which I think most people can afford a month. And that's for 5 months. And after that, you keep access permanently. Because this is something else that we came across recently. Someone sent me an email saying that, but if I sign up with my first child for postpartum recovery, will I then still have access when I have my second child years later? And I said, that's an excellent question. It's just something I hadn't considered, that people wanted access for 3 or 4 or 5 years, or however long it takes. So I said, oh, yes, of course. There's no problem at all, because it doesn't. All online training is, for anybody listening, all online training is it's a numbers game. And it doesn't matter to me whether I have 10,000 subscribers or 1,000. It costs me the same amount of money to run the website. It really isn't more expensive. So there is nothing other than me wanting a bigger house. There isn't really a driver for me to not make it more affordable for people, right? And that, to me, just makes complete sense when we're talking about what I see as a fairly essential service for postpartum women. You should not have to pay $300 a month or £500 a year, or however much you're paying, and then pay every year just to keep access to the same program. Especially not if you've already paid.
I absolutely love it. I think you're amazing. I have so much respect and awe for you, because I totally agree. No, truly, I think it's just beautiful. In your words, it's just the right thing to do, but no one did it. So I really think it's absolutely amazing, and I want to shout it from the rooftops. And it's just beautiful. You are amazing. I wish I had known you way earlier. But no, absolutely. And also what you said is so true. We women, when we have to care for our family, for our children, we come last. So yes, everything else will come first. And because it's such a busy time of really creating, there is not, well, mostly for most people, there are not so many funds. So absolutely amazing. Okay, let's dive a little bit more into the details. So what should we do postpartum? What exercises are really helpful? What is happening in the body postpartum? What do you usually see? And what kind of questions? Oh my goodness, those were lots of questions. Now just start somewhere and I'll ask more. Then sorry.
No, those are excellent. Those are excellent questions, because especially the what is happening in the body postpartum is really, really important, and it's not often addressed. So you still have all these pregnancy hormones and those postpartum recovery hormones going through your body. And when you're still breastfeeding or expressing or whatever you do, if you're still lactating, then that means you have several hormones that help with that as well, such as prolactin. And I'm not going to get into the nitty-gritty of what all those hormones do, but the focus for a lot of women postpartum, and this is mainly due to societal pressure, I get that, is on losing the baby weight. And if you Google losing the baby weight online, you'll get thousands of websites that tell you how to do this. And you shouldn't. You shouldn't Google losing the baby weight online, simply for the reason that some of these hormones, such as prolactin, will make sure you always retain 5 to 10 pounds of body weight, of fat, because you're feeding a baby and your body is still very much in that I'm taking care of a human being stage. So we have to understand that just saying I want to lose all my baby weight is probably not the best goal to have early on postpartum, because you're unlikely to achieve your goal. It's not impossible, but it's so difficult and it's not very healthy, and it's not really what the focus should be on for your recovery, for what is best for you. Then we still have all these hormones such as relaxin flowing through our body that made you able to give birth, right? And that made everything nice and wobbly, so to speak. So we're not fighting them. We just have to give that a bit of time to recover. So the early stages of postpartum recovery are very gentle sort of stuff. So, of course, everybody listening to this probably already knows this. You can start your pelvic floor exercises, your Kegels and all that sort of stuff, as soon as you feel comfortable, usually about 2 weeks postpartum. Any sort of postpartum exercise program is always 6 to 8 weeks after you give birth. That is kind of, you go to your GP, they sign you off, and they say something silly like, yeah, you're okay to exercise now. They don't necessarily quantify that. So in your mind, that could mean running and cycling and all that sort of stuff. Whereas your body isn't really ready yet for that sort of thing at the 6-week stage. What I always focus on is making sure everything in the early stages functions properly again. If you can imagine, during pregnancy, because of the weight gain, your center of gravity shifts a little bit, which is why a lot of women end up with that waddle. If you get really big, you almost start to walk like a duck a little bit, and it gets tough to get off the sofa and all that sort of thing. And you find that you're pushing your pelvis forward a lot because your belly is sticking out and all that sort of stuff. It's just more comfortable on your back to walk that way. That means that certain muscles in your body are out of alignment. Not a problem at all, because let me start by that. It's not a problem. This stuff is all fixable, right? With a bit of exercise. But it means that in the beginning, you focus a bit on what I call muscle activation. Now, I know some physios listening to this might freak out of the phrase, but just it's easier to understand that way. Your glutes are kind of not doing what they were supposed to do and what they were doing prenatal, before you were pregnant. So we kind of make sure everything works properly. Your glutes, so those are the muscles in your bum, your obliques, the muscles in your sides, and your core muscles overall, just everywhere. And that is not just like deep core stuff, anything like that, just normal, all your core muscles, including the abdominal muscles. So you start working them gently. So what I always start with the first 4 weeks is always set up is that you do some glute bridges, you do some squats, you do some lunges, just all the standard stuff you already do. Because a lot of the time the focus seems to be on just working the core muscles, right? Because everybody feels weak in their belly, and therefore they start to work the belly, not just by doing crunches or planks and all that sort of stuff, but they kind of forget that it's the surrounding muscles that have to support the core. And those muscles have to work before you can actually do any real core work. Because if the core doesn't get any support, then it's going to remain weak. And you have your day-to-day life happening as well. So we have to remember that we're not just training your body to recover. We're training your body to be able to deal with a toddler, to be able to deal with a baby, and quite often at the same time. Because when, like you said, if you have kids quite like yourself, you have kids quite soon afterwards, you have one who's older than the other one. So you're carrying one whilst also having someone else pull on you a little bit, and mommy, and mommy is holding a baby, and mommy has a toddler. You have to train your body to be ready for that and to deal with that. And if we do that, it doesn't take long. I always tell people that, let's be honest, you don't have a lot of time. Nobody wants to exercise an hour a day every day if you've just given birth. So I always tell people, if you target the exercises to the right areas, so like I said, the glutes, the obliques, and your core muscles, then you only need to do 10 minutes a day every day, and maybe half an hour to 40 minutes twice a week if you can squeeze it in. So it's just about being a little bit sensible early on, getting that activation stage right, which is about 4 to 6 weeks. And after that, you just focus on strengthening everything up.
I love it. I love it because it's doable. Obviously, we've spoken already about the affordable, and it's also functional. And for me, it's all about functional exercise anyway, because this is the way then it will also really look good forever. If it's not functional, there's probably something gone wrong anyway, and you are not truly deeply strong. So I can absolutely relate to what you're saying, and I absolutely love it. Thank you so much for explaining a little bit what happens when we are pregnant or just after. And yeah, I can also relate to the fact, you know, like I was carrying baby and running after my very active other toddler. So yes, definitely no time, and or not a lot of time, and also not so much energy to really put so much effort into harsh exercises. And I think it's really misleading. Our society is really misleading there in, you know, you've got to lose the baby fat fast and get your body back. I don't know what all these phrases are. I would just like to add, it's not only harmful for your own body, as you actually described so beautifully, because our bodies are not meant to be that way at that stage. But also it's really harmful for the baby. You know, if we are trying to lose weight, any toxins will go into the milk. So if we are breastfeeding, this is really harmful for the baby. So I think I would really love to see a big shift along the line in society, and really honoring our or the female body in different ways. But that's a different story. Okay, so you've already shared with us how we are meant to strengthen around our muscles to get the functionality back. So when can we do a little bit harsher things if we feel like it? So when is it a good idea to go back running? This is just a question that I hear a lot, so I'm guessing you too.
Yeah, no, running is one of those things. Everybody who loves to run wants to get back to running as soon as possible. People who hate to run, like myself, will never ever want to run again, right? So both are completely fine. I would say with regards to running, so after you've done that first 4 to 6 weeks of recovery, so you're now about 3 months postpartum at this stage, assuming you started at 6 weeks postpartum, you're now about 3 months postpartum, everything should feel a bit more comfortable. It doesn't take that long to start feeling more comfortable, and especially for running, when your glutes and all that sort of thing are doing so your bum muscles, when they're doing what they're supposed to be doing at all the right times, that is usually the time to start adding gentle exercise. Now, what we find for running, the issue with running is not so much that the exercise itself is bad for you postpartum, but the impact of running means that the internal pressure on the core is at the moment of impact is quite a bit higher. And that means, very simply put, that your pelvic floor and your core is under more strain than it is when you're, say, walking, or when you're doing a squat or whatever. So that's the bit where you have to be a little bit careful with. So I always say you start with gentle running. Don't start blasting that marathon in 2-hour type of pace. Just try to just start walking with a little jog. And by a little jog, I mean a nice, gentle jog. And see how it feels. Because quite often, what I find runners do, a lot of runners are awesome at running, but they're terrible at breathing. They're not relaxed when they're running.
Totally. Thank you for saying that. Yes.
And if you're not relaxed, that means that internal pressure on the core is significantly bigger. So one of the things I teach as part of that of any postpartum recovery program is something I call the core breath, which teaches your core when to activate as you exhale, right? In which order you do things. And if you're relaxed in running, then that is how you breathe anyways, right? When you watch 100-meter sprint, when you watch those men and women at the Olympics, go onto YouTube after the episode, of course, and see how they run and see how relaxed they are when they're running, because that's when you're fastest, right? You're not fast if you're running if you're completely tight. You're just not. So you need to be nice and relaxed in running, and then you find the internal pressure on your core is nowhere near as much as it used to be, and you probably find you're actually a faster runner. And then you just build that up. And I was talking to a running expert a couple of years ago on my little podcast, and like she was saying, if you can run 1 mile, you can run 5. But if you can't run 1 mile well, you'll never be able to run 5 well. Sorry. And that's the thing. There is, other than your body getting used to the endurance element of running past the 1 mile mark, so into 5 mile or 10 miles or half a marathon or something like that, there is nothing that says that you can't run again, and that you can't run long distances. You just need to be a little bit relaxed about it, realizing when things feel comfortable, realizing that things take a while to become. Just because your core is feeling a bit better again doesn't mean your body is completely ready to start going 100 miles an hour. So you start with a gentle jog for, I don't know, 1 mile, right? Or 1 kilometer, depending on how you measure these things, right? And how far you can run. And then you move on to what I call the strength and endurance part of your postpartum recovery, because that's still going on in the background. I'm assuming that's still going on. When you say, I want to get back to running, you're still doing squats, you're still doing lunges, you're doing step-ups and all that sort of stuff, which will help your running as well. If you want to get better at running, you'll get your core and your pelvic floor stronger. That phase takes another 4 to 6 weeks. And then we're up to that 3 months postpartum recovery program, right? That's the 12-week postpartum recovery program. First 4 to 6 weeks is activation. Second 4 to 6 weeks is all about strength and endurance. And at the end of that, I have never come across anyone who was in reasonable shape prenatal that can go back running 3 months after into any sort of postpartum program at a decent level. It's just learning how to run properly.
I love it, because you truly allow the body. I mean, you're supporting the body, but you're allowing the body with the right support to do their thing, to really recover, rebalance, and heal, if we want to use that word, which is absolutely beautiful. And again, I feel these days in society, it's all about doing it yesterday. Like, it has to happen overnight. We have to have a quick fix. We have no time. We can't wait. And this is just not how the body works. If we truly want to support our bodies and want to own true health, true strength, true recovery, what you're talking here about, it takes some time. And 3 months thinking about it is nothing. We've just had a baby for 9 months in our body. So 3 months is nothing. So I love that. I love your approach. And thank you so much for pointing out the breathing part, because I'm super passionate about this. So I have to confess, I love running. I'm one of these ones who really love it. But I see, like, when I go running, and this is not meant to be as a judgment, but I just feel strongly about it that it doesn't have to be that way. When I look at all those runners, they are huffing and puffing, and they are all breathing out through their mouth, and they are amazing. They are often way better runners than I am, way faster, but they are not relaxed. Like, they're breathing through their mouth, and it's strenuous. I just want to shout at them, breathe through your nose, relax,
Yeah.
I don't know, you can see they're working with their shoulders,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
you have to use your shoulders if you don't breathe
Yeah.
properly. So thank you so much for sharing that, because it can be a totally different scenario and feel so relaxed when you're actually breathing through your nose and using your core properly. Okay, thank you for allowing me to say that. Let's chat about what else can happen if we don't support our bodies the right way. So if we jump too fast into something like I did, thinking I'm doing the right thing with my crunches way too early, and everything was very loose and fluffy still. So what happens then? Tell us a little bit about diastasis recti and what else can happen.
Sure. So just assume, so every woman who's ever given birth during pregnancy had diastasis recti, right? 100% there is, otherwise you wouldn't have room for the baby. So it's completely normal and it's completely natural. About 80% of women still have it 6 weeks postpartum. In some cases, the muscles kind of go back to where they were prenatal. That doesn't mean they're working properly yet. It just means they're in the right place. And for some physios and some personal trainers, that means the diastasis is no longer there. For me, I say, well, as long as the body isn't functioning properly, you still have a problem. So I still call that diastasis recti, just to make it simple. So what can happen if your core muscles aren't functioning properly? It means other muscles have to do the work, because the work still has to be done. If you imagine, everybody with babies and toddlers can relate to this. Life used to be really simple when you got in the car. Before you had kids, you just got in the car with your bag and your phone and your keys, and you got in the car, you were fine. As soon as you add a baby to that, you have a travel system, you have a bag, you have babies. If you add a toddler to that, you have a pulling toddler and all that sort of stuff. Those things have to be lifted into the car. So as a woman, you're carrying more weight, doing more resistance training on a day-to-day basis than you probably think you are. So you have to kind of train for that stuff. Your body is under quite a lot of strain when you do that lifting, especially if your core muscles aren't really doing what they're supposed to be doing. And that means that other muscles are kicking in, like I said. So that includes your back muscles. So that means that all of a sudden, at the end of a long day, your back hurts because your core isn't doing its job. So then you might think you have a weak back, whereas actually you have a weaker core. Your back is just fed up doing all the work for it. You can still have a lot of pelvic girdle issues. Obviously, things shift a bit, and you may have covered pelvic girdle pain and all that sort of stuff before. But again, it's all linked to the same thing. And what we find a lot when you have a buggy or a pram, whatever you want to call it, if you live in a place like I do, Scotland, where everything is uphill, then that just means you're pushing a lot. And that means that, if your core isn't doing the work it's supposed to be doing, helping you out with all that sort of stuff, it means your back is going to overcompensate. And that usually leads to back pain. So postpartum back and neck pain is an incredibly common thing. And it's almost inevitably caused by the core not doing what it's supposed to be doing. And diastasis recti is a part of that. And onto that, you can have some knee pain. And this sounds really odd. Knee pain is very common postpartum as well. Some women might feel this. It's not from running. It's not from walking too much. It's not from doing a lot of steps. It is just because your glutes are not really doing the work they're supposed to be doing. And before you know it, your knee starts to hurt, because if one part of the body doesn't work, another part will find a way to compensate for that, because the action, so to speak, still has to happen. That sounds more complicated than it is, but this is why a good postpartum recovery program really focuses on including the movements that you do 1 million times a day without thinking about it. Squatting to pick up the little one, squatting to pick up the crap the little one left, all that sort of stuff. Shifting weight from here to there in a rotational movement, we call that, moving side to side. Because if we don't train that, the body can't really get any good at it. Right? It sounds so obvious when I put it like that, because it really, this is not rocket science stuff, right? This is not something I invented, like this was already there. It just means that if you train these things properly, your core activates properly, and your glutes work properly, and you strengthen those right muscles up, you just don't have the pains and the niggles that come with what a lot of postpartum women still suffer from. You don't need to have them. With regards to diastasis recti specifically, you just want to put the muscles back where they should be.
Yeah.
Right? If the muscle is round, and I know a lot of physios this day and age will say that diastasis isn't really a problem if it doesn't hurt. And I could not really disagree more, because I don't really know any muscle that functions well when it's out of position. It just doesn't make sense to me. If my bicep was on the outside of my arm, I would not be able to curl my arm as nicely. And so it just doesn't make any sense to me. So you put those muscles back, and then everything starts to work properly again. And then all the pain and niggles go away. There is no reason why you would have any sort of postpartum back pain, neck pain, knee pain, or pelvic girdle pain. If all this stuff is eminently fixable, and it doesn't take that long to do. But like you said, we need to be a little bit patient with it and realize that if we're staying within our comfort zone, and for any runners out there, the Nike running coaches did a wonderful thing with Headspace about how to become a better runner. And everybody knows the Headspace app, right? The mindfulness app.
Yeah.
I'm sure it's still on YouTube, this episode, where they said if you stay within your comfort zone, you'll actually be a faster runner. That's because that's what quite often what we forget is that if we stay within our comfort zone, our body will be better at what we're asking it to do. We are very big these days on holding our breath and squeezing and making everything sound as tough and as hard as it is. But that is not your body functioning well. It is, well, that works for like strongman competitions and all that sort of stuff, and CrossFit competitions and top athletes. They have to strain their body. But unless your goal is to compete at the Olympics, there is no reason for you to push yourself that hard. And if you just allow yourself that bit of grace, as one of my American clients calls it, just allow yourself a bit of grace and just say, I'll stay within what I'm comfortable at, and I'll teach my body to be better at life, then it doesn't take that long to actually have your aches and pains go away.
I love it. And it's very Ayurvedic. So it's actually what I preach as well.
Yeah.
And I actually think it was really important that you pointed out that it is important to train all those moves, that we will be doing as young moms. Because if we do them wrong, again, everything in the body goes wrong and can't rebalance. So I do think this is an important point, because there's so much going on. We are lacking sleep. Our world has just completely shifted and changed. And, you know, we have to reinvent ourselves and our lives. And I didn't think about, you know, how do I pick up my toddler? I was just thinking, okay, I make sure he's not, you know, getting run over by the car.
Exactly, yes. Yeah.
You know, and that the other one is safe too. So I think these are fabulous points that you are making. And I also think they are very empowering, because what you sharing, again, I said it before, but I love it. It's doable, you know, and all you're saying is, okay, here, I've got a plan for you, how I help you to rebalance, to reset, to re-strengthen in a very functional way. And I love that. I really think this is it. You are totally on the goal. That's amazing.
Yeah, because and that's a good point. Sorry to interrupt, but that's a good point. That this is not a you have to get fit postpartum sort of scenario, or you have to lose the weight. This is not a you can or even you can get back to how you were prenatal sort of position. That is not at all what I do. I always tell people, always tell women, listen, I can't get your prenatal body back, right? You try being in, for want of a better phrase, a bit crass, but you try being in a skiing accident, breaking 2 legs, and then have that trauma, go to hospital, get physio, and then say you have exactly the same situation as you had before your accident. You just don't. It is different.
Yeah.
Being pregnant and giving birth has a tremendous impact on the body, and we have to acknowledge this. However, having said that, there is nothing that says that you can't get stronger and fitter postpartum than you were prenatal, than you were before your kids, right? You can be much stronger and much fitter and much, if you wanted to go that way, leaner and sportier and all that sort of stuff.
That's all.
Yes, you can do all that stuff.
Yeah.
We're just working with a different body, and it's a different, as I always tell people, it's a sat nav. Think of me like a sat nav, right? So if you go to London from where you stay, and I go from London to where I say, our end point is the same, but our starting point is different. And therefore, the way we have to get there is different. You can't just take the random set of left turns and right turns that I take, because it would get me there, but you'd end up in the wrong place. You'd never end up there. This is why I always tell people, just copying what other people do doesn't work, because their starting point is different. You have to start from what your position is. And if you do that, you can be stronger, you can be fitter, all your aches and pains can go away, or will go away if you just put the effort in. It is that simple, but you have to be a little bit gentle with yourself and all that sort of stuff. And just realize that your pre-baby body is gone, but that doesn't mean that your post-baby body can't be amazing. That is kind of where I am.
Absolutely. I love that. And you've kind of made this point a few times, but I would like to say it again, because this is another thing that I really love about what you're saying. It's truly about tuning into your body as well, and understanding your body more, or honoring your body, obviously with your health, understanding what to do. And I think this is really powerful and empowering. And my body definitely is not the same after having 2 children, but I would say my body is so much stronger. I am so much stronger in general, so much more resilient, and I wouldn't have it any other way. There's one more thing I would like to mention, because I can imagine that this is the same for many other women. So what happened to me as well, and again, it's what you have sorry, Jessie. So for everyone, this is my new puppy. Meet Jessie. Come on.
Hey, Jessie. Okay. It's okay.
Sorry.
Everybody has to say hi.
My teenage girls are coming home, and she's very excited. Okay. So this is real life podcasting. Okay. So what I want to say is, and I can imagine that this is happening for many other women as well. And again, it's what you said before, that our body always tries to make do, or, you know, make up. If we have a weakness somewhere, the body tries to compensate. And I noticed, and I know now why, like one of my glutes was weaker than the other, but I was always leaning to one side, and always, you know, having the baby on one side. And it was a real habit. I realized that even like once I didn't carry the baby anymore, I was like really leaning, and it almost felt like one leg was longer than the other, and which wasn't true. But I've heard this also quite a few times from clients. So maybe can you say a few words about
that is an excellent point. So the carrying the child on the hip, right, is completely normal, and that is the only way, let me make this very clear, it's the only way you're going to get through motherhood, is popping that little one on your hip. I've heard a lot of people say, you shouldn't do that, or you should change hips and all that. That is not practical advice. That is the sort of advice that makes you feel like crap pardon my French, for not being able to stick to it. It is horrible, horrible advice, and it drives me nuts. The job of your personal trainer or physio or coach or whatever you want to call it is to make sure that within your life, they fix you, right? So your habits have to be practical. So they have to say, okay, it's practical for you to carry your child this way. Whilst you're, I don't know, cooking or doing the dishes, you're stirring a pot, the baby sits on the hips or the toddler sits on the hips. This is why advice such as no heavy lifting is completely impractical, because you have to pick a toddler up off the ground. And toddlers are heavy. They just are, especially when they don't want to be moved, right? There's no heavier thing than a 2-year-old that does not want to shift. You're easier picking up a car, right? So within that, your postpartum program really just has to deal with these things. A good postpartum program just deals with that stuff. It assumes that these are the things you do. Because like you said, every woman does this. So any coach in the world worth their salt would compensate for this with the 10 minutes or half an hour or however long they tend to work sessions. So as part of the sessions that I do, like I said, in the beginning, we activate things a bit. Then it's about strengthening up stuff, but we strengthen up both sides. But you start on what we call the weaker side. Well, what you do when you pop a hip out, you create an imbalance, right? You just do, and that will be your weaker side. And everybody has one. Everybody in the world has a weaker side. That's why some people are right-handed and not left-handed, right? The right is going to be stronger than the left because you use it all the time. So to train that back up, you work on the left a little bit more. Or even better, you start all exercises on the left so that if you can do 8 repetitions on the left, you don't do 10 on the right, because then you're increasing that imbalance. And you give the left time to catch up. Every single postpartum program has to take that into account. If a postpartum program doesn't teach you how to move, and by teaching you, I don't mean that as in you, the individual. I mean teaching your body how to move and how to automatically use the right muscles. You shouldn't have to think about which muscles to use, because when you're picking a child up, that's just not a thing, right? Proper muscle activation. And again, physios will lose their mind when I say that. Proper muscle activation teaches the body that when you go from one position to the other, this is the order in which the muscles move.
Yeah.
And no muscles are skipped, right? And that means that left leg or right leg being longer than the other one because your hips are tilting a little bit, that imbalance won't be that much.
Yeah, totally.
Right? And in an ideal world, we're completely symmetrical, right? In an ideal world, everything is completely straight. But I don't know if you've ever met anyone. Some physios are like this. If you've met anyone who's almost completely straight with regards to their movement, like I said, some physios, they're like robots. They almost seem inhuman in the way they move. And don't get me wrong, it's beautiful what they've accomplished. It just looks odd to the human eye. One side is stronger than the other. That is just the way it is.
Yeah, totally agreed.
And therefore, your postpartum program takes account of that. There is no worse advice than telling a mother to stop doing what she needs to do in an effort to get her body back to functioning properly. That's the wrong way around. For anyone listening, if you're working with a personal trainer, and that is always the order of things. I always tell people that. Listen, if you can afford a personal trainer, go work with a personal trainer. Even my online program, which is pretty good, is not as good as someone standing next to you telling you this is what it's like for you, right? You just can't. And there isn't a single online program or online coach as good as someone standing next to you who's even average, right? They will be better because they can see what you're doing. But you tell them what your life is like. And then their job isn't to go, oh, well, you better change what your life is like. No, their job is to go, okay, and here is how I can fit into this and make sure that what we are doing still gets you to where you want to be. You are the client in this relationship. You are the power in that relationship. You are the driver of all that sort of stuff. A lot of the postpartum advice has been taken from the weight loss community. right? So if you then come into your doctor's office or your personal trainer's office and you say, I'm too heavy, I eat donuts all day, then the personal trainer says, well, you need to stop eating donuts all day. And that is true, right? But that is not the same as I have to sit behind a desk for my job all day. And the personal trainer then just goes, well, just stop doing that then. But you mean stop working and paying the bills? That is lousy advice. We wouldn't accept that, but we accept it in postpartum recovery programs simply because it is easier for, and I'm really passionate about this, as you can tell, it is much easier for me to tell you that you're doing something wrong than it is for me to adapt what I'm doing to your lifestyle. One takes significantly less effort than the other one. And a good personal trainer or physio will say, no, I have to put the work in. This is what you're paying me for.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, and this is one of the reasons why I absolutely love you and the work you do. Honestly, you are amazing. I could speak to you forever. Where can my audience find you, Peter?
So a couple of things, healthypostnatalbody.com, exactly, you spell it exactly like it sounds. That's the website where you get 3 months free postpartum advice. The podcast is out there as well. Again, Healthy Postnatal Body Podcast. I'm currently on like episode 200 something or other. I've been going for a while. I basically, like yourself, I interview experts and I answer listener questions. So Peter at Healthy Postnatal Body, if you're like, I'm not signing up and I'm not listening to your stupid little podcast, that is also okay. Peter at healthypostnatalbody.com. You can still ask me questions. I love when people send me emails, even if they're not members or listeners, simply because it gives me subject matter to talk about on like the next podcast episode or the one after that. I love doing Q&As, right? Simply because after 200 odd episodes, I'm kind of running out of steam sometimes. Yeah. I don't know what to talk about anymore. So the easiest thing to do is I get a listener email. Awesome. Or or email from a random person or someone just saying I'm wrong about something. Then I can address that on the podcast. So, you know, all those things are just nice, easy ways to get in touch with me.
Fantastic. And I'll make sure I put all of these into the show notes. Peter, to finish, could you just give us 3 gold nuggets? So, I mean, you've shared so much amazing advice, wisdom, knowledge. Really, really love your work. But just in 3 short nuggets so that my audience has 3 things fresh in mind they can do to support themselves in this phase of their lives.
Yeah, no, that's okay. No problem at all. Number 1, realizing that things like diastasis recti are caused by internal pressure on the core makes everything much easier. It means that when you're looking at postpartum diets, for instance, the only diet you need to follow for diastasis recti is one that stops bloating. So if you bloat when you eat an apple, you can't have apples for a little while. And it means your belly will shrink. Every woman listening to this will be aware of postpartum bloating. And it's a weird phenomenon. Right? Once you realize that diastasis recti is caused by internal pressure on the core, everything just falls into place, right? That is, you breathe easy, you lessen the pressure. You don't hold your breath, you lessen the pressure. Same with, like I said, bloating. Second one, don't work your abdominal muscles directly. There is no need to it. These are not the most important muscles. You can do crunches if you want. They are safe to do if you do them right. The problem is most people don't do them right, and they're not helping you get to where you want to be. So stop doing them. It's all about the glutes. And I don't mean that in a let's work your booty ladies type workout. I mean, it is all about you do your squats, you do your lunges, and you do your glute bridges, and you're halfway there. Thirdly, and this is probably the most important part, so I should have started with this, get your breathing right. If you don't do anything else, and you don't have to do anything else, I'm not telling anyone to exercise. I will send Ruth the link as well to my core breath video. If that is how you exhale every single time in your daily life, your core will get significantly better than what it is now. It is the goal. It is the key to any sort of postpartum recovery is breathing properly. and making sure the muscles work in the right order when you do that. When you do that, everything else slots into place and everything else becomes easier.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Peter. Thank you so much for helping to make our world a happier, healthier place. You are amazing. You're an absolute superstar. And yeah, I'm sure my audience would love to have you back at some point because you're just
anytime.
Full of wisdom.
Anytime you want me back, just send me an email.
Amazing. Stay awesome, my friend.
Thank you very much. You too.
If you want to learn even more about postpartum care, then please check out Peter's amazing podcast, Healthy Post Natal. And if you've got more of a private or very individual question, then shoot him an email. He's amazing and would absolutely love to empower you too. If you love and enjoy my podcast, then please help me on my mission to make our world a healthier, happier place. And you can do so by sharing my podcast with one other person who you feel would really benefit from it. I know that you were born to live your best life and to feel absolutely wonderful in your beautiful body, in your brilliant mind, and in your boundless soul. So what are you still waiting for? Please make sure you do. I believe in you, and I'm your biggest cheerleader. Keep glowing. Much love.